With the recent combat achievements update, there was a nerf to ranged combat, and that nerf came in the form of when arrows being reduced back to 2% damage per stack when they were 3. Now that may not sound like much in the grand scheme of things, but considering that when arrows have a maximum of 15 stacks, that is a 15% damage reduction. Now this has affected most forms of range combat. However, I wanted to do an update video today specifically on the video I made about 6 months ago at this point. Actually, it was only 5 months ago. I just went and double checked. And that was doing 30 plus kills per hour at Raksha using this preset here. Now this one that I have shown is slightly different from the one in the original video, but today I just wanted to talk about the changes to the rotation, and I have an example kill to show you later on me getting the Grandmaster achievement for Raksha. But I'm just going to talk about my findings so far, what I think about the nerf, and then go ahead and show the example kill. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get right into this video. So the main changes I have made to my preset is I've added the fleeting boots or enhanced fleeting boots. Honestly, whichever ones you have, feel free to use either. It's not going to make a whole lot of a difference. I added the spring cleaner just because it has a bunch of springs in it. It can auto alch some of the drops, which means I don't have to toss it in an auto alcher, so it's just kind of a convenience item. I have the room for it. And rotation wise, I'll go ahead and bring up the screenshot from the original video, and I'll have the original video linked down in the description below and in the pinned comment, so that way if you haven't seen the original full-on guide, you can go ahead and watch that. But essentially all I've done rotation wise is I changed this anticipate here to a freedom, and I make sure to have vengeance on. It seems to help with the consistency, as I'm not able to 100% get the third dark bow hit from this dark bow to show up on phase 2's HP. It seems to be getting nulled sometimes on the soft cap for phase 1. So using freedom instead of anticipate to get the additional 10% reduction to go away, so that way venge hits higher, seems to be helping out more than I thought it would. And in general, just being lower HP to let Zerk Fury fly a bit more and buff up the damage a bit has also been helping. I pretty much do not use any overhead flicks anymore. I will just forced chug all of the food that I have to keep my HP, you know, just above not dying, but low enough to where Zerk Fury can actually really start to cook. Now, if you're going for the Grandmaster achievement, which is a sub 115, meaning a 115 doesn't count, 115.6 doesn't count, it has to be a 114.4 or faster. You will have to be teleporting out if you do not get that third dark bow hit to go on to phase 2's HP pool. But if you're just going for kills per hour, you can honestly ignore it, because you can make it up on the back end in phase 3 and improv a little bit on the rotation in order to get a decent pool skip, and it shouldn't affect kill per hour all too much. But other than that, for phase 1 and phase 3, I have not changed the rotation all too much, other than changing the anticipate to freedom and making sure I have vengeance up. Some people in my chat were telling me they were playing with using Zamibo EOF in the place of snapshot here and here. Although this can cause some potential adrenaline issues, if you want to experiment with Zamibo, go ahead. Apparently the one for phase 3 replacing that snapshot is a lot more consistent and can help out a bit if you don't quite get the phasing right on the phase 1-2 transition. So it's definitely something to consider. The main thing that I have changed, and I don't know why I've been doing this, but on phase 4 specifically, if you look at this part of the rotation, for some reason I've always been pressing Bolg before ECB, but now I'm correctly doing this where I hit ECB and then Bolg spec. And when you press ECB, you can also click on Raksha to get a free auto attack out, which will definitely help increase the damage output and make up a little bit for when arrows not doing full tilt damage. And the main thing I did here is I just swapped the SGB and the dark bow, so that way on the tail end of all this damage, essentially when I'm doing the giant damage dump for phase 4, and essentially what this is doing is giving a third dark bow hit on both of the dark bow specs, which is going to be more damage than having an additional arrow with SGB, and you're still able to limitless with snapshot at the end should you need. And this change here is what allowed me to go from getting the 115.6s or the 115 flats, to then go ahead and get a 14.4 on the nose. And this swap of SGB and Darkbow was a suggestion from my Twitch chat, so thanks again, chat. And that's pretty much it. The method seems pretty consistent. If you're comfortable with the rotation already, you should be able to improvise and get it to work with the current when arrow damage. If you're just learning the rotation for the first time, just keep in mind you might have to finagle with the rotation a little bit and massage it to get it to work properly. But I'm going to take this time to talk about my thoughts on the when arrow nerf. People have been asking me what my initial thoughts are on this nerf happening, and in general I agree with the nerf itself being the contents of when arrows going back to 2%. I think that's more than acceptable. The part that really got me annoyed was the timing of releasing this with combat achievements, because if you think about it, the original when arrow buff came out in March of 2024. That is almost a year that when arrows have been in game like this, and pretty much from the start, every high-end PVMer or anyone who tested when arrows at all in any capacity were saying, hey, these things are really strong, you probably should nerf them. And in traditional Jagex fashion, with things like, you know, Fractured Staff of Armadyl or Greater Ricochet, 3-tick Snipe, the Needle Bug, these things are usually left in game for way too long, to where everyone who has been kind of sitting on their hands with it just eventually starts writing rotations for it, because we assume it's probably going to be in game for a while, might as well. And usually 8 months to a year later is when the nerf comes out, and it's usually at some really inopportune time. And that's my entire annoyance with it. As I was waiting for the combat achievements to come out, I was practicing this Raksha rotation to make sure I could get the Grandmaster time off the bat, and in the news post they dropped the fact that it's getting nerfed. And honestly, that's just my entire gripe with how it was implemented. Of all of the kill times that are on the Grandmaster side of things were all done and data mined with 45% when arrows in place, and that is kind of my main grievance with the nerf. It's not the nerf itself, it's just the fact that we've all been saying these arrows are really overpowered for such a long time, and they waited for us to go and completely develop entire methods and whatnot with the busted arrows for almost a year. In fact, I think in less than 3 weeks it will be a year since that combat update, which I can understand their logic of, well, let's go ahead and drop it on release instead of nerfing it like a week later and making more adjustments, as they can pretty easily adjust required times for certain bosses while we're going out and farming these attempts and whatnot. But honestly, I would have liked to have seen this change either in the combat beta itself when we were saying, hey, these arrows are really strong, or slightly after that combat update, so we didn't get really deep into the weeds on how to utilize these arrows and whatnot, at least in their broken state, and figure a bunch of rotations out. But I've rambled on about that long enough. I could keep spinning my wheels until I'm blue in the face here, but I think what you all really want to see at this point is the example kill, and this is me getting the Grandmaster achievement later on in the day, but this was still on the day of the combat achievement drop. So let's go ahead and roll that example kill.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
Please be it. Please be it.
Yes!